All right, I'm excited here to have Kristin Woxland here. She currently serves as the SVP of Member Engagement and Development for the Central Region of the 4As, where she provides strategic leadership for the advertising community. And previously, she spent over 17 years at Colle McVoy, helping drive the agency to 2023 Adweek's Midsize Agency of the Year. So, with several decades of experience building brands and cultivating strategic partnerships, she brings a unique blend of creative vision and business acumen to every challenge. Kristin is passionate about innovation, operational excellence, and empowering teams to deliver exceptional results in our ever changing industry. So, thank you, Kristin, for chatting.
Thanks for the intro, Dustin. I'm excited to meet with you here.
Yeah, let's just start with some basics. Like, what would you describe? Like, what is a brand?
What is a brand? That's a philosophical question for this morning. I got my cup of coffee. I think one of the simplest descriptions of what a brand is that I've kind of hung on to is, it's so much more than a logo. It's everything an entity makes, does, and says in the world. So it's the sum of all the expressions put together. And then, how does that resonate in an audience's mind? What is the perception that is left? I kind of like to think about it as, what are people saying about it when it's not in the room?
Yeah, yeah, it's that feeling. It's that intangible of
Mm-hmm.
when this thing comes up or when this person, when their name gets dropped. What's the feeling you resonate with them? And that feeling doesn't come from just one thing. It comes from all the ways that you've interacted with that person or that brand.
Exactly. Over time, it all builds.
Yeah, yeah, it's not one moment. We like to use in the 3D brand system, we talk about it, a brand as a disco ball. And it's thousands of little points of light that are out there in the world, and everybody experiences a disco ball differently. So that's why it's so
Yes,
important to have that nucleus, have that brand defined so that everybody knows what they're doing. It makes marketing dollars work harder. It makes everybody learn the brand quicker so that they're not wasting efforts as they're out there doing their specific job.
exactly. I love that disco ball analogy. It's like everybody's going to take in that disco ball maybe slightly differently, but you're controlling it at the nucleus and how they're going to, bring it into their life. So yeah, I do like that one.
So, what would you say makes a memorable brand versus one that's like quickly forgotten?
I mean, it starts with the nucleus. It starts with what is that brand's reason for being? What is the true promise that that brand is going to deliver to its audiences? At least a basic brand strategy. What are the values of the brand? What is the personality of the brand? But then, how are you expressing that in a really distinguishing way? In the agency world, we really focused on what are the brand's unique brand assets or distinguishing brand assets. And those are really critical. It could be a logo, but it could be other things. It could be a combination of things that make that brand distinct. It could be the mnemonic that is tied to the brand. It could be a jingle. It could be a slogan. It could be a unique color that is associated with the brand. And really, it's the sum of all of those things.
Yeah, brand asset is like a mental shortcut so that when I see that blue, I know it's Tiffany blue, and things
Exactly.
like that. What would you, is there any like example of like a smaller brand doing that really well or like anything that comes to mind?
A smaller brand. Maybe not like a brand that's still well funded, but maybe new, that stands out to me. I was just in Austin last week, and in Austin, they have the Waymo driverless vehicles.
Mm,
Um, so they're part of the Alphabet, Google system of brands,
yeah.
and so the brand feels akin to a Google. You can tell that it's familial, but it had a really distinctive brand system that came through in the physical car itself, and like the light on the top of I don't want to call it a cab, but the car and the light system and the pattern that it would make. And then you see that same pattern like in their print materials or digital materials. Like it's a really connected brand system, and their language is just really crisp. I mean, it feels like a Google brand, how crisp they talk to you and how just accessible it is. And you can tell that the brand strategy was so crisp and clear of what they wanted this brand to be. It's about a way forward. About a new way forward, and everything is tied to that. So that's a newer brand that I just paid attention to as of last week.
Yeah, and to your point, like they probably started with like, what what is this brand and what do we want to stand for? What do we want people to feel when they see this car
Yes.
driving up, and how does it tie into the larger brand? So if you're if you're a not for profit or something like that, that's where it's so important to have that nucleus, that idea of like, who is my brand? What do we want to convey? And then that turns into the sales material, that turns into the signage, that turns into your CRM or in your email messaging and stuff, so that it all stays very consistent, so that when I get that email, it's like seeing that car drive down the road. You're like, oh, I understand this tone feels like it comes from this charity or whoever. What would you say is important for a not for profit if they're trying to build a brand or use the power of branding?
Yeah, I think everything we just talked about is important, but with maybe the added focus on what is that case for support? Why should somebody care about your cause? And you need to emotionally connect with people. So getting very, very clear about what is your purpose? Why do you exist? What are you trying to do? And then why should someone join you? And I think articulating that in a way that's really accessible. So sort of that brand story, if you will, that makes someone want to care. And it needs to be emotional first. People are making decisions with emotion first, and then back it up, certainly with some rational reasons. But I think with a not for profit brand, that's first and foremost.
Talked a little bit about brand assets. Like they can be for like a not for profit or a charity or something. Like a brand asset could even be a way of articulating your value.
Yeah.
Like bottles in babies' hands or whatever. Like you want to give people the emotional reason for following, but then you also want to give them some tangibles. Like, hey, when you are here, when you're helping us, here's what we're actually doing, and that bottles in babies' hands can be a brand asset. So when you start in the world hearing about bottles in babies' hands or whatever, you think about that brand and that charity. Like it's that hook that ties you into the larger story, and that can be anything. It doesn't have to be just a color logo. It could be something like an RTB or a tangible benefit of an emotional story.
For sure. And then start with that and then start to build around it, right? Build assets from that, that you can continue to build that brand over time and build onto your story over time. I think that's what the wonderful, fun thing about branding, right? Is it never sits still, and you need to continue to evolve the brand to appeal to your audience. And as the brand matures or culture changes, your brand can flex too. You just have to keep some core elements consistent over time, right? So that you have that
Yeah.
brand continuity.
And that's where it's super important to have like just even like a really rough comms framework or something like that, so that you know what you're putting out in the world. I hear a lot of times like, well, I'm just doing social media. I don't need a comms framework, or I don't have a big budget. I just do CRM or email or something. And it's like, no, that's why it's even just as critical for those type of organizations as well, because what are the stories you're putting out there? What are you talking about on social media? Whether it's you telling stories or you gathering stories or you asking people to donate, or people that lives you made a difference, like what stories they're telling. You want to have those all be lined up to that larger
Mhm.
emotional story, to that nucleus, to those RTBs, that brand asset, because without that, then you're just wasting money.
I mean, it's proven that brands that show up consistently across platforms over time have a higher revenue. Like it's scientifically proven, and you're going to build that brand over time, and that's everything you just said is so important.
Yeah, it doesn't matter the size of your organization. It can be a small brand or a not for profit. Like consistency is key.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You are working for the 4As. You get to see a lot of different perspectives. You see into a lot of different agencies and a lot of different brands. What are you seeing as the next 6, 12 months happening in our business? Like what is brand building? How's it evolving? With AI and with all the different technologies going on.
AI is going to impact how we do branding, both from how a brand is creative. We have more tools in our toolbox, right, to be able to use AI to help us create. But also, AI is changing the way that we search for things.
A brand can be a north star for an organization to allow them to make sure everybody's like marching in the same direction. And I think that we're
Mm-hmm.
going to see a lot of AI empower smaller teams to do more with less. And so
Yeah.
it's going to be quicker to get to insights. It's going to be quicker to, you know, build micro personas that you can test your message against, and kind of like, you don't have to do real focus groups, you can do AI focus groups and kind of see what messages are going to work. So
Yeah.
it's an exciting time to be able to have a smaller brand or have a not for profit and be able to swing above your weight quickly, because it's going to just be a year or two before AI is ubiquitous and it's the benchmark. But those that are kind of getting ahead of it, that are thinking differently, that are like, how can I take my small team and maximize it? What are the things that I used to have to pay an agency for? Like, what can I do on my own? I think are going to be the ones that come out ahead here in the next 6-8 months.
Yeah, and then how do I take maybe what AI is giving me, but then use that as like the kindling, or using that as a starting place, but really bringing some more craft into it, right? Bringing a human element into it to make it more distinctive.
Yeah.
There's still that role for it. I really loved what the head of strategy at Colle McVoy talked about. All of us have the same drinks at our bar, right? Like you have the same bottles of alcohol at the bar, but the bartender is still important, right? Is how they mix it together. And I think we as the creatives, we as the brand makers and brand stewards are the bartenders that get to choose how those ingredients come together, and what cocktail we're ultimately making. And that's still going to be important for brands to be distinctive, because everybody's got the same bottles.
Yeah. And I think we're starting to see the other side a little bit. I mean, Apple this week with their research basically saying AI is not great at reasoning. Like, it's really great at parroting, it's really great at copying or giving you like things that we know. It's a great editor, it's a really good synthesizer. But when it comes to like new thoughts or reasoning that are a little more complex, it's failing. And so I think that's where we're gonna see, hey, what are the synthesizing, what are the basic tasks, what are the editorial things that we can have it help us get to, and then use that human spark, use that like creativity, the bartender, if you will, like you said, to make something unique and new that then
Mhm.
stands out in the market regardless of the
Exactly.
size of your company.
Yeah.